Oh boy! Oh, he will be the most popular president of all times if he can do this. You know, and I've seen different videos, you know, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, talking about the income tax. There's, the rabbit hole goes real deep on income tax. And, you know, I've seen people talk about it, you know. It's like, well, if you guys can print all the money you want, why do you tax us? And then there's that video, just to name a couple. Remember that video that is a meme basically going around where the girl's like, okay, well, we get paid and then you tax us on that. And then when we spend it on something, you tax us. But if we sell it, you also tax us. And then if you buy it from me, you get... And she's all like confused and stuff. Yeah, it's a whole lot of wild stuff with taxes. So, could you imagine if there was no income tax at all? Could you imagine that? Oh my God! You know how much richer a lot of us would be? Oh my goodness. And you know, when I think about tax law and tax code and things that I've learned being a business owner, it's like there's these different laws, even loopholes, and you know, everything's legal with how you can save on taxes. And you know, I've read a couple of books on them, and it's like, you know, basically a lot of these laws and loopholes and different ways were created because the people with the money were like, yo, you're taking too much of our money. So they passed laws so that they can save their money. So that's one thing. You need to learn how to legally know how to pay the least amount of taxes as possible. And, you know, people have jumped on Donald Trump and other business owners, rich people that know how to use these laws. But the thing is, if you knew how to use the laws too properly, as long as it's legal, do it legally to save on your taxes. And you can't be mad just because they know how to use the law properly on their side. And I'm not talking about dirty, underhanded stuff. I'm talking about stuff you go right to the library or right online, look it up. I said library. Who goes to the library now? Everybody Googles everything. Go right online, look it up. It's like, oh, okay. All I need is this form. Oh, okay, I can do this. Oh, okay. You know what I'm saying? But wow. So this man, the former president, has repeatedly praised a period in American history where there was no income tax and the country relied on tariffs to fund the government. I want to know what the talking heads have to say about this. There's got to be pros and cons to this. I don't know what they are. I guess maybe we would pay more for goods, maybe, if there were so many tariffs. But Trump flirts with the ultimate tax cut. No income taxes at all. This is coming from the New York Times. Former President Donald J. Trump has spent much of the presidential campaign brainstorming new and sometimes untested ways to cut taxes in the election's final stretch. And you said he ain't looking to help the common man. Look at that. He raised the possibility of going even further, eliminating income taxes entirely. During a Fox News segment on Monday, Mr. Trump took questions at a barbershop in Bronx. When asked if the United States could potentially end all of federal taxation, Mr. Trump said the country could return to the economic policies in the late 19th century when there was no federal income tax. So I guess there still would be state tax if he's going to do that. But hell, I'm all for it. If we can save some money, put some more money in my pocket. It had all tariffs. It didn't have an income tax, Mr. Trump said. Now we have income taxes and we have people that are dying. They're paying tax and they don't have the money to pay the tax. You know, I could have swore I was reading a Robert Kiyosaki book when he was basically like, at first, only the rich were taxed. And then he said the government got greedy and said, we're going to tax everybody now. How y'all like that? I could have swore I read that in the Robert Kiyosaki book. And him and Donald Trump are buddies too. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The most important financial book that I've ever read in my life. It's what set me financially on my path. In June, Mr. Trump floated the idea of replacing federal revenue from income taxes with money received from tariffs. Mr. Trump has not provided specific details on how that would work, and it is unclear if he wants to eliminate all federal taxes, including corporate income tax and payroll taxes, or only in the individual income tax. Either way, both liberal and conservative experts have dismissed his idea as mathematically impossible and economically destructive. See, and I was like saying, well, we used to do it, so how can we get back to do it? I'm curious. I'm sure where there's a will, there's a way. It's got to be mathematically possible. It could take time, but who knows? Even if Republicans control Congress, lawmakers are unlikely to dismantle the income tax system. Yet Mr. Trump's combination of tax cuts and tariff increases has been central to his political pitch. And you know what? I'm scared. I'm really scared for him now. Government brings in a lot of money from income taxes. I'm really scared for him now. Like, hearing that there's no more federal income tax is freeing in a way. I feel a weight lifted, a financial weight lifted. At the same time, I'm like, this sounds dangerous. There is a way, if what I'm planning comes out, Mr. Trump said, of ending income taxes. Replacing income taxes with tariffs would reverse the progressivity of the tax system in the United States. In general, income tax are progressive, meaning that Americans with more income pay higher tax rate. Tariffs, which impose a tax on products imported into the United States, are regressive. They raise the prices on imported items like clothing and groceries, placing a larger burden on the lower income Americans who spend a bigger percentage of their income on those goods. So I guess the question is, if they're saving money, would the money that they're saving by not paying it in taxes be enough to cover the rise in costs of goods and at the same time leave them with more money than they had before? I think that would be the key. It's like, people are like, okay, well, yeah, you raise the price of this because of tariffs, but look at how much money I'm saving because of no federal income tax. And I've got more money in my pocket than when you were taxing us. You know what I'm saying? Mr. Trump has denied that Americans pay the cost of tariffs. He argues that companies overseas bear the cost of tariffs on the products that they ship to the United States. Economists largely debunk the argument. Companies generally pass along those higher costs to consumers by raising prices. Very, very interesting. What do y'all think? What y'all think? The article goes on and explains why we have income taxes. The United States put income taxes into place to achieve two main goals: raising taxes on the rich and paying for a larger federal government. The country briefly had an income tax during the Civil War, but it was not until Mr. Trump's favorite historical period, the late 19th century, that the idea gained ground again. Tariffs largely funded the federal government, but Democrats of that era wanted to collect more money from the wealthy by charging an income tax. In the late 1800s, Democrats led by William Jennings Bryan attacked tariffs as a burden on poor Americans. Republicans supported tariffs in a way to protect American industry from foreign competition. There was a real concern about inequality, just as there is today, and there were great disparities in wealth and poverty in the Gilded Age. And so the income tax was seen as a necessary leveler by its proponents, said Stephen Weissman. the author of the book on the history of the income tax in the United States. Actually, creating a federal income tax was ultimately an involved process requiring the ratification of the 16th Amendment in 1913. At first, it was narrowly targeted at wealthy individuals and corporations, but fighting 2 world wars and creating programs like Social Security was expensive. American policymakers turned to income taxes to pay for those priorities. So it was the rich, like Robert said. It became a mass-based income tax for the first time during World War II. And W. Elliott Brownlee, I wonder if he's related to Marquess Brownlee, a historian of tax policy at the University of California, Santa Barbara, tariffs dwindled as sources of federal income while income taxes expanded. Today, tariffs make up just 2%. Wow, of federal revenue, while income and payroll taxes make up 94%. Overall, the tax system is progressive. In 2020, the top 20% of the earners in the United States paid about 80% of all federal taxes, according to the Congressional Budget Office. So, Trump's alternative, tariffs. Mr. Trump has not formally proposed ending the income tax system in the United States. Instead, he has offered tax cut after tax cut on the campaign trail, arguing that he could cover their costs by drastically raising tariffs on imports. Several of Mr. Trump's ideas amount to blanket tax exemptions for certain types of income, like tips, overtime pay, or Social Security benefits. During a podcast interview last week, Mr. Trump said he would consider allowing police officers, firefighters, and military officers and members to forego paying taxes. Well, about to be a cop! Any change to tax code that allows certain workers or types of income to be exempt from paying taxes could prompt people to try to classify more of their earnings as tips or overtime, making the cuts potentially very expensive. I don't know how you're going to do that, but okay. Mr. Trump's goal to impose tariffs on all imports into the United States could raise a lot of money for the federal government, but it would not be nearly enough to replace income taxes. The United States imports roughly $3 trillion worth of goods annually, while the country collected roughly $4.2 trillion in income and payroll taxes. Oh my. Overall, his agenda would raise taxes on low-income Americans, provide a tax break for the richest, and drastically increase the deficit, according to the analysis from the Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy. The challenge for raising revenue from tariffs is that placing a tax on imports tends to cut the amount of trade. Therefore, reduce the amount of revenue collected from the tariffs. Raising tariff rates high enough to try and replace income taxes could end trade with the United States. Interesting. You're going to send imported goods to zero, and then you're going to have no tax revenue. Steep tariffs could prompt foreign trading partners to retaliate with tariffs of their own, reducing American exports and slowing economic growth. Mr. Trump has experience with this phenomenon. While president, he wound up having to bail out American farmers whose exports to China slumped during a protracted trade war. The potential for such an outcome helped prompt William McKinley, the 25th president of a Republican, whose support for tariffs Mr. Trump often celebrates, to ultimately moderate his position on tariffs. Very interesting. I'm very interested. Hey, if it can save me money and not hurt the country, but only help the country, I'm in for it. 10 million subscribers.